Hello everyone, welcome to our Risk Management School. My name is Nicola Costa and I'm a member of the Pirani team. I'm glad to be here with you today to explore the theoretical and practical aspect of the different topics that we will see. To help us delve into this session, we're happy to have with us Alejandro Orrego, CEO at Pirani. Hi Alejo, it's great to have you here with us. How are you?
Hi Nicole, hi everyone. Thank you for joining our today's Risk Management School as every month.
Of course. Before we begin, I would love to invite everyone to continue learning about the world of risk management by visiting our Pirani Academy, when you will find valuable learning materials. So I will leave the link in the chat now so you can see the website.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Thank you, everyone, again. So today we're going to talk about the risk assessment matrix. Some of you in the comments in the last webinars and in the academy are asking us for, okay, how can I start in the risk management ecosystem? How can we start from the basics, from the initial concepts? And some of you, and even in the Google Trends, for example, the keyword or the concept that is most searched is risk matrices. Apparently, everyone thinks that risk management equal to risk matrix. So we want to talk about it. Of course, we're gonna compare. We're gonna work in a risk matrix in spreadsheets in Excel, and then we're gonna see how it works in a risk management software, of course, Pirani, and then we're gonna talk about some differences. But again, this is like the risk assessment matrix for dummies, because there's a lot of people connected to this webinar. So if you're an expert, or so be aware of, we're going to talk about the principles and initial concepts. And I also want to address that there's a lot of people from Latin America in this specific risk management school. You welcome to every webinar. Of course, I'm happy to see you here. But if you don't know, remember that we have the risk management school in Spanish that is every Thursday. The risk management in English is every month. So I want to sure that you are aware that we also have the risk management in school every Thursday. So tomorrow we're gonna have one. So that being said, so let's begin talking about risk assessment matrix. And the first thing, of course, that we need to talk about is the main definition. And maybe we'll, in some cases, know this grid, these colors. We're gonna deep into it in a little bit. But a risk assessment matrix is a tool used in risk management to evaluate and prioritize potential risks by categorizing them based on their likelihood and impact. It provides a visual representation that helps in assessing the severity of risks and deciding which one needs attention. So once again, as in every risk management school, you know me, we're going to talk about the risk management cycle. That, remember, either the frame where are you working. Risk management is not just that grid. Remember that risk management is a whole cycle, from the identifying context, risk evaluation, risk strategies or treatment, monitor and report, continuous improvement. And again, as a cycle, it needs to be repeatedly. But as the name says, that is risk assessment matrix, maybe we're gonna focus on this specific step of the cycle, that is risk evaluation or assessment or rating or measure risk. So we don't gonna deep into all the other processes, maybe some overview, but we're gonna deep into this. So again, as I told you in the definition, that grid have two key components of a risk management, of risk assessment, that is the impact and the likelihood. In some frameworks or some definition, they talk about probability. So the impact refers to the potential consequences or effects if a risk happen, and the likelihood is the change of a risk event occurring. Is the measure of frequency or occurrence of the risk that can be expressed in low, medium, high, or in percentage, or likely, very likely. So how it works? So the matrix is a grid with the likelihood on one axis and the impact on the other. Risks are plotted on the grid based on their assessed likelihood and impact. And common matrix form are 3 by 3, 4 by 4, 5 by 5. It's up to you. The most common actually is 5 by 5. In this case, we're watching a 4 by 4 because it's 4 quadrants in the likelihood and 4 quadrants in the impact. And it depends on you. And what is the purpose of this? I already spoiled and mentioned is prioritize. So prioritize risks to focus resources on high risk areas and assist in decision making regarding which risks to mitigate, transfer, avoid, or accept, or whatever strategy you want to follow. Remember the last risk management school, we talked about 10 risk management strategies to follow. So, and we also talk about another concept in the risk matrix on heat map, that is the risk level or risk grades that are basically the colors. So here we have 4 grades: the green, the yellow, the orange, and the red. So the low risks are in the green area, for example. The idea is to manage with routine procedures. The medium and high, so maybe in this case, the yellow and the orange, it requires monitoring and some control measures. And of course, if we need to prioritize and start with some risk first, maybe we need to work with the critical or severe, in this case, the red ones, that those need immediate and active mitigation efforts. So let's do this. This is the theory, but of course, what we want to do in this risk management school is to talk about practice. So usually, people start doing this in Excel. So we're gonna work with this in a spreadsheet, in this case, from Excel. So here we have an example. So to dive into the concept. So the first thing is we're gonna select the grid. And again, this is just Excel. Everyone can do this in their own computers. So we can have, again, in this case, 5 by 5. So in one axis, we're gonna have likelihood. So 5 quadrants, like unlikely, possible, occasional, likely, frequent. And in the other, impact, that it would be 5, like insignificant, minor, moderate, major, catastrophic. So again, 5 by 5. And what is the result? What would be the residual risk? So what would be the rating if I put a specific risk in the red area, for example? So as you can see, is basically a formula. This is if the impact is 1, insignificant, and the likelihood is 1, unlikely, it will be here, 1. So 1 by 1, or 1 plus 1 equal 1. So the next step is the likelihood is 2, possible, and the impact will be 1, insignificant, will be 2 plus 1, or 2 by 1 equal 2. And again, in every quadrant, like, for example, the likelihood is 5, frequent, and the impact is 5, will be 25. So with this information, we can create the risk levels. So in this specific example, so if the result, the rating is from 1 to 2, like these 3 quadrants, will be the risk level. In some cases, also they talk about risk grade. It's up to you. We're gonna have a very low risk, inherent risk, or E, or whatever name you want to give. So if the rating is between 3 and 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in this specific case, 5 quadrants will be low. And from 6 to 10 will be medium, the yellow. From 11 to 19 will be high, the orange. And from 20 to 25 will be critical, the red. Again, the concepts, the naming will be up to you. So maybe you want to work only with 4 risk grades, or only 3, low, medium, and high, and whatever color you need. But this is the basic definition of the risk matrix for the assessment. So once you identify every specific risk, then you need to rate, okay, this specific risk will be moderate impact and an occasional livelihood, based on your knowledge of the business, based on the knowledge of the risks of the sector. And this is basically how it works, so how it looks like a risk matrix. So we have another approach following the 5x5, but in this case, we only have 3 risk levels, or 3 risk grades, like it's only green, yellow, and red. So in the Pirani Academy, we have a template to do this. So Nicole will put it in the chat, the link, if you want to download, because you say, okay, maybe I'm still not ready to do risk management in a specific or a specialized software, but we want to start in Excel. So we can provide you completely free this specific template. So you're gonna download something like this, the homepage, the instructions, and the variables. So you can put whatever name you need for your business. What is unlikely to you? And again, this will be 1 until 5. So maybe unlikely for you is, of course, once a year, possible once per semester, and likely, of course, per month, and frequent, of course, several times in a month. But maybe your definition is different. Maybe every day, every 2 days, every 2 days, every once in a week. Again, this is up to you. And in the impact, you can put whatever name you want to use: insignificant, catastrophic. What will be the overall impact for your business? It will generate $20 or less for you, or maybe you are working in a huge enterprise company and insignificant will be, I don't know, $1 million. It's up to you. And the catastrophic will be impact, will be generate losses of more than 5,000 or 5 million, or whatever definition you want to go. But this is the main concept of a risk assessment matrix. What is for you the likelihood of for those risks, and the impact, the consequences, and the rating? And again, this here, are we watching this formula, or this final rating, the likelihood from it to impact, and this is giving you, okay, low, medium, high. And then we can put in this spreadsheet what is the name of a specific risk that can happen. I don't know if you can, someone can put it in the chat, a risk that came to your minds, so we can do the exercise here in the Excel. Not yet, we're shy today. Okay, so maybe we can work with some generic, I don't know, so internal fraud, or like what risk can be working with. So let me check on my software. Supply chain disruption. Work with this put it in the Excel. So maybe this can be a risk in the company. So I put it in the Excel on the spreadsheets. So I can collect this. We can link this specific risk with some process that I'm working with. Again, based on the risk management cycle, I need to connect or be aware that every risk will be affected or is directly connected with some specific process of the company, or a specific factor or source. So I put it in the matrix, and then we going to make the assessment, right? So, oh, someone put it natural disaster like hurricane. Thank you, Sebas. I watch in the chat, but you put it in the question and answer. Thank you for that. So, okay, let's go with this. So in the natural disaster like hurricane, so how often could this happen? So we're talking about likelihood. So maybe this is once a year, once per semester, once per quarter, once per month, several times in a month. And of course, this will be depend of the context, again, of the organization. It's not the same if you are in Florida or if you live in Texas, right? Because maybe if you are in Texas, the likelihood is not even in this rating. But based on the context of your organization, we're gonna put like once per semester, for example, once a year. Sorry. Like hurricane season is once a year, usually in Florida. Actually, we start in one. And what impact could it have? So, and again, we're talking about, usually when you talking about the only one impact, the overall impact, people talk about money at the end of the day, either for good or for bad. So what happens if you have a hurricane in your company? How much money you think you're gonna lose? It will affect your offices or your operation. You won't be able to distribute your products. Or if you are a technology company, actually nothing gonna happen. So again, this assessment won't be the same for every company, because again, maybe for a technology company, maybe the impact will be minor, but for a retail of a transport, or that depends of the weather of the highways, the impact will be different. So based on this, the likelihood is 1, the impact is 3, 1, 3, the risk level is low. So in the risk matrix, we're gonna see it in that way. So this is basically how a matrix can look like. This is the template that we can show you, but I'm gonna show you another matrix that looks maybe a little bit different. That, in my experience, most of our clients work with some matrix like this. But maybe they don't need to assess one risk or two, because they need to assess all the list of the risks that they're working with. So usually or typically in the spreadsheets on Excel, you have the sales that you want to work with. So for example, in this specific example, you can create, okay, we're gonna put an ID for that specific risk. Maybe we're gonna link with some processes or divisions or areas or departments. So in this example, we have the human resources department, that we have a human resource macro processes area in the company, and we have a department of human resources, and a procedure is human resource planning. So maybe the risks associated with those specific process is inaccurate forecasting of future workforce needs. So in the risk matrix, we're gonna put the inherent risk. So the likelihood will be 5, for example, and the impact will be 3. So the result is 15. So based on this heat map, will be medium, right? I'm sorry, height, because it's 15, and in the heat map, we say from 11 to 19 will be high. We will be in this area. So the inherent risk is high. So until here, as you can see, we have a concept of inherent risk. So let me explain it a little bit better. So what is inherent risk? The inherent risk, let me here, is once we have the likelihood and the impact, the quadrants that we want to work with, the risk level that we want to work with. Once we have the first assessment, the definition, for me, for my company, this is the likelihood, this is the impact, this is called inherent risk. So it refers to the level of risk that exists in a process, activity, system before any risk management or control measure are applied, right? So this is what could happen for me or for a committee or for a group if that risk occurs. So this is inherent. So remember, you can download the template in the Pirani Academy. And let me go back here. And then when we're gonna work with risk management strategy. So now you know that in this example of the hurricane, the natural disaster like hurricane, that you already know that, okay, the risk level is high, is low. So what are you gonna do with that information, right? So remember that the last risk management school, we talk about risk management strategies. With that information, you identify a risk, you assess that risk. What's next? The next is select a risk management strategy. The last risk management school, we give you 10. So in the overview, you can avoid that risk, you can mitigate, you can transfer, you can accept, or in the other way, the 4 T's, you can terminate, treat, transfer, tolerate, that is basically the same, or you can do loss prevention or do loss reduction, or you can do sharing or spreading, whatever strategy you're gonna follow. If you, for example, you want to mitigate that risk from happening because it's high, so you're gonna link some control or action plans, usually controls, to mitigate that risk. So maybe you want to do a specific activity or policy or insurance or whatever to mitigate the impact of the likelihood. So for example, to follow in this case of a hurricane, is very difficult to mitigate the likelihood. I mean, you cannot change the weather, right? So what will you do to mitigate the likelihood of a natural disaster like a hurricane? Maybe you cannot. So in this example, so maybe you can loss reduction, right? You can mitigate the impact from happening. So you can do two things. You can mitigate the impact of the hurricane, or you can transfer the impact. So for example, usually for mitigating the impact of a natural disaster, you can hire an insurance company. And this is transfer the risk. So, but you can also mitigate the impacts, and maybe you work with disaster prevention. You can tell your employees or your collaborators what to do if a hurricane happening next week. So contingency plans, and you can different controls. So you can buy an insurance, but you can also have a contingency plan. So you can put different controls to mitigate or transfer that risk. And after that, once you have one control or two controls, you will have the residual risk. So the residual risk is the level of risk that remains after controls or risk management strategies have been implemented to reduce the inherent risk of an activity, process, or system. So we have the two concepts. The initial risk rating will be the inherent risk. And after we want to work with some strategies that, again, is not only one. The best thing that you can do is to have a layer control strategies. Maybe one to mitigate, maybe one to loss prevention, maybe to reduce impact, whatever. And with those controls and strategies, you want to move that risk from the orange area to the yellow or even the green. So, for example, in the case of the hurricane, maybe we won't be able to move the likelihood. Again, we cannot mitigate the likelihood of a hurricane, but we can move the impact, right? So maybe the impact, if I do nothing, is orange, is high, but if maybe I hire an insurance and I create a contingency plan and an awareness campaign and sensibilization or whatever communication strategy that I want to follow, I can prevent the impact. So from orange to yellow, maybe not the likelihood. I don't know if until it is clear, like the concept of the risk assessment, because this is basically risk management. It's not just put the thing, the idea that I have for the risk is high. So in this example, that's why we put the inherent risk is, in this case, 15 is high. So now we can put in my spreadsheet or in my Excel, okay, what is the risk treatment that I'm gonna do? I'm gonna follow with this specific example. So I'm gonna treat, I'm gonna mitigate, or maybe it will be transfer. Okay, it's up to you. Maybe it's a little bit of both. That's why in the risk management strategies we talk about, I think for the specific example of the hurricane, following the case, will be loss reduction. That is something between mitigation and transferring, but it's not loss prevention, to be honest with you. Or if you have any other approach, please let me know in the comments or in the question and answer section. So if the risk treatment that you want to follow is treat or loss prevention or whatever, so what controls you want to work with? What controls or what strategies you going to select to mitigate that specific control, risks from happening? So maybe you can put one, but usually the idea is that you maybe don't gonna have only one control per risk. this is very an oversimplification of the risk management. Again, you should be a layer control strategies. So maybe this is like a risk matrix usually looks like. So again, we're gonna follow with the example. So natural disaster like hurricane. So I'm gonna put it in here. The risk will be this one. So usually in an Excel, so you follow the formulas. So maybe the likelihood will be 2, but the impact will be 5. And usually the Excel or spreadsheets have some formulas. So as you can see here, the Excel have the if condition. So base, if we change, I put it 6, or if I put it 3, the Excel of the template will give me the information that I need. So again, we're gonna do 2 and 6. So the inherent risk will be high. So what strategy I'm going to follow? I'm gonna go with loss reduction. Okay, perfect. So what controls you need? If I say that maybe we're gonna work with 2 different controls. So the usual thing that we do in this example is to duplicate, right? So for the same risk, with the same inherent risk rating, maybe we're gonna transfer with insurance. And another control will be a contingency plan. For example, an awareness campaign, or maybe another awareness campaign. So for the same risk, now we have 3 different controls. So we need to duplicate the risks, or maybe in some cases they just combine the cell. But is this gonna be a headache when we need to work with this spreadsheet? So, and now the next thing is how do I know how much is this changing the residual risks? So let's follow the case. And again, until here, there's a lot of human decisions. There's a lot of human perception and bias from a specific person, of a team, or whatever committee you have. So, okay, I'm gonna hire an insurance company to prevent the impact from a hurricane. So in that case, I know that the insurance company won't affect. So I'm gonna start with the current rating, that is 2, 2, 2, 6, 6, 6, right? So if the insurance company won't mitigate the likelihood, but mitigate the impact, how much will mitigate the impact? So if the disaster happened, how much money I'm going to save? Do I have that number, or will be subjective? So in a broad example, so we're gonna say, okay, the likelihood will remain the same. I never can change the likelihood of a hurricane. So the insurance maybe will mitigate the impact from 6 to 5. Maybe the contingency plan will mitigate the impact from 6 to 4. And the awareness campaign will mitigate the impact from 6 to 5. So now I have this, and now we need to do, okay, if we have different controls, how much will mitigate at the end of the day? What do you think? So maybe we can do an average of these, and we need to, or we just work with this is the ideal, right? So maybe you say, no, you know what? I'm not gonna put it in 3 different cells. So now I'm not gonna complicate myself. So I'm gonna say the existing control will be in the same cell. What do you think is happening here? There's a lot of human decisions and subjective and bias in the risk management. And this is not very good. So again, we create a lot of assumptions. So in this example, I know that the inherent risk was high, and I talk about different controls, and now the residual risk is medium, and we talk about risk management. And in this spreadsheet, again, the spreadsheets can do it all. We can put different cells, so we can put objectives or risk category. This will be an operational risk, for example. And in other example, they have, you can put factors. So that's the good thing. So maybe, oh no, I want to track the pestle factor or the specter of if this is from the SWOT analysis, this will be a threat of a weakness, whatever. So maybe we can do that. This is an external factor. And usually when you're working in Excel, you start doing very creative and putting a lot of information in your spreadsheet. But at the end of the day, we have a lot of bias and assumptions. Of course, you know your business. I'm not saying another thing. You know your business better than anyone. But what is this actually a strategy is doing in the Excel? But this is how a risk assessment risk matrix looks like. But let me go back in the assessment, because in another methodologies and framework, you may say, but you know what? It's very difficult for me to assess a risk only taking one impact, because okay, maybe the impact will be money, maybe the impact will be a fine or a sanction or to buy to sell less products, whatever. But what about the reputational impact, or what about the environmental impact? How can I rate that in a risk assessment matrix and in a spreadsheet again? So that's why we have another thing. So let's gonna give you another example, and I want to go with the same of natural disaster like hurricane. So we're gonna rate by variables. So we're gonna be at the matrix. Sorry. Yeah. So we have some definition. Let me see here. Like the impact variables is sometimes, and most of the time actually, it's not just money. You need to be aware of different impact or consequences that can affect your business if that risk happen. So in a better methodology, in a better approach, so maybe you can track what will be the operational impact or the financial performance or the reputational, the legal, the environmental, the health and safety. This is the most common impact variables, but you can choose only 3 or 4 or whatever. So how this can be translated into a risk assessment matrix in a spreadsheet. So we can do that. So the natural disaster like a hurricane, so we're gonna have different variables. So maybe the likelihood will be the same, will be 2. So maybe the likelihood will be 2, but what will be the impact in the operation? Okay, maybe the operation will be 5, but the financial will be 5, but the reputational will be 1, because it's not up to me that I don't know. The legal, maybe 2. The health and safety, maybe 5. So now I'm rating different variables in the context of my business. So we can have 2 options, because at the end of the day, the result will be just one formula. So we can do 2. You can have 2 from the highest rating. So in this case will be the maximum. So either if I put 1, 1, 1, 1, but only, for example, only the financial have 5, the impact will be 5. But in another methodologies, they work with average. So in this case, will be this. It's up to you. It's not one single answer for that, but look how it changed from the highest rating or the average. But you may say, okay, what is the idea of do the highest rating if at the end of the day the most important will be the financial? But maybe for this specific risk, but maybe for another specific case will be different. So maybe the financial impact will be minor, but the reputational will be catastrophic. So at the end of the day, the risk rating will be catastrophic. So this is how you can do the risk assessment by variables. But again, this is just more information, more cells to your spreadsheet. But how can I do the residual risk from these variables? Basically the same. So you need to choose the strategy that you want to follow. Maybe it's loss prevention, whatever, mitigate, treat, whatever. But at the end of the day, you need to choose after this specific control that I want to follow, what is going to change in the financial, the reputational, the legal, and the health and safety. And this is basically how that risk matrix looks like in a spreadsheet. So the thing is, you can do this. Of course, it's better to do this in a spreadsheet or Excel than to not doing it at all, you know? So, but because at the end of the day, remember the idea of a risk matrix is something to help you to prioritize and categorize the risks that you're working with. And with this information, you can choose the strategy that you want to follow. But if you have 10 risks in your company, this is the perfect way to do this. But what about if you have 1,000 risks to track? And again, every risk maybe have 1, 2, 3, 5 controls. So 1,000 plus 5 controls per risk will be a headache to work with all that information in a spreadsheet. So that's why risk management software exists. So maybe you may say, okay, but I don't have the money to buy a software. So the good news is in Pirani, you can start all this information that we just gave you. You can create that in Pirani for free because we have a free plan. So you can track processes, risks, and controls to have that information. So the first thing in Pirani, so remember that in the sample, in the heat map, so you need to do select the cells, the colors, make the multiplication, the formulas, to have the rating. But in Pirani, you can choose, okay, what will be the risk heat map that I'm going to follow? Okay, I'm going to work 5 by 5 or just 4 by 4. I just select the risk level that I want to work with in a click. with no formulas, nothing very difficult. You can put the names that you want to track, the risk level that you want to follow, and as simple as that. And then we're going to create the risk, supply chain disruption. You just put, okay, will be significant, will be likely, and in real time, you will see the information in your risk heat map. And then how can I mitigate that risk from happening? So as you can see, we have the inherent risk information. So for the supply chain disruption, what controls I'm going to track? So for example, compliance policies or quality plans. So I'm going to put that, I'm going to create a control to mitigate that risk. So what will you mitigate, the impact or the likelihood? And now we have some information, but how do I know if that control is good or bad? That is another thing that maybe in your risk assessment or in the risk matrix do you have. You only put a number. But in this specific example, we're gonna save changes. So now I know that with that specific residual, risk is changing. But in the controls information, we can select if the controls are weak or medium or excellent. So how much we mitigate the risks. So we give you a specific questions to help you to understand how much of what is the strain of this specific control. So for example, this control is preventive or is corrective. So based on your answer, it will change. This the control is manual or automatic. The automatic will has less errors. Is the control is executed repeatedly? If not, it's gonna be less. So you can customize the information, and of course, you will have reports, because at the end of the day, to have a report from this Excel, of course, you can go to filter. Let me filter all the rating that is critical, and let me export this information. But at the end of the day, you're working with a huge spreadsheet with a lot of information. But in a specific software, maybe you can have comparative. Okay, maybe let's help me compare this specific risk matrix with another period of time, or let me see the residual risk is something is changing in the time, or let me see the controls or the risks by processes and by controls. So you will have more information that with a huge spreadsheet, and you can download this information in PDF and PNG for presentation, and even in Excel if you want to work more. So to close this school, let me give you some information to close the idea. So the first thing, of course, you can start assessment of your risk in a spreadsheet. Again, it's better doing in Excel than not doing it at all. But if you can do this in a software, in a specific and specialized software that actually is for free, so you can do it. And we want to give you the key advantages or what are the difference. So the first one, in a software, you will have centralized data management. So risk management software provides a centralized platform for storing and managing all risk-related data. This reduces the risk of a data being scattered across multiple spreadsheets. So imagine that if you working, one person is working with this information. So, okay, maybe that person is very, I don't know, have a talk, and only one person is managing the file, so maybe the risk is less. But if you want the company is working with this information and you have 10 different people working in the file at the same time, how it would work. 2, advanced analytics and reporting. These tools often come with built-in analytics and reporting feature that allows for more sophisticated read analysis and visualization. It's very difficult to have that in spreadsheets. 3, real-time updates and collaboration. If 2 people are creating rigs at the same time, what's going to happen? So if I'm working in this and I'm creating new cells or new columns, and another person at the same time is doing it, it's going to be catastrophic. It's going to be, I don't know how it's going to work. So in a software, you can do that. Automated risk assessment, again, is in the risk matrix, is manual. It's put a specific input or information in a cell. Everything is that way. So a software has many risk management tools, include automation features to calculate risk scores, prioritize risk, even suggest mitigation strategies. So for example, in Pirani, when you are identifying risks, we have an AI integration that suggests risks based on your industry or the process that you want to follow. So maybe I'm working in the food industry. I'm going to track maybe customer service risk, and I don't have any idea to do this. So a specific software can give you different suggestions of risk. Excel don't do that. 5, user-friendly interface. You can create the most beautiful risk assessment matrix in Excel. But at the end of the day, this is a table with a lot of data and formulas. A software is created to do that specifically. So the user-friendly is very important. And mostly if you want the whole company work with risk and be aware of the risk, and you want to enhance a risk management culture, that will be impossible in a spreadsheet. 6, scalability. Again, you can start doing risk management with 10 risks in a spreadsheet, but as your organization grows, managing risk through spreadsheets can become cumbersome and error-prone. Risk management software is designed to scale with your needs. 7, audit trails. Of course, you can say, oh no, who changed that specific information? Maybe I can go to a history of versions and try to identify what's happening in the Excel. But on a specific software, for example, have audit logs. You have security information, you can track everything that every user in the software is doing it. What was the change? What was the IP address? He log in, he do not. And this is very important for audit trail. So often include that track changes and update and mature risk data. 8, improve accuracy and reduce errors. We are humans. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna put a number in that is not. So spreadsheets are prone to human errors, such as formula mistakes, data entry issues. Risk management software reduces these risks through standardized processes and automated checks. And last but not least, regulatory compliance. Dedicated software often includes features to help ensure compliance with industry regulation, and even when the visit of auditors or regulators, that actually says, no, Excel is not for the maturity or the size level that you have. You need to do work with a risk management software. And 10, integration capabilities. So this software solution often integrate with other business systems like ERP, CRMs, project management tools. For example, in the event risk report, Pirani have an API integration with you already have the events report with PQR solution that you already have. So we can connect. the login. So we have Active Directory, which helps in consolidating risk information from various sources and maintaining a comprehensive risk profile. So finishing our risk management school, you can download the template of this risk management matrix in Spreadsheet if you want to start, if you want to work with. But now I show you how can you do this in Spreadsheets on Excel if you're starting. But I hope I aware of the risks or the benefits to do this in a specific or specialized software like Pirani. So thank you for joining. I don't know, I have 1 minute left in this class. So I don't know if maybe we have one question until here, Nicole, or we can see you next time.
Have questions yet. So
okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alejandro, for your great explanation about risk assessment matrix. Finally, I would love to invite everyone to participate in the short survey that will appear when this meeting ends. This will help us to improve our webinars. Thank you so much for your participation and see you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.